In Berlin. Welcome to KreativLounge. Hello! Huh? Oh, you're tired. Oh, you're tired. After 2 days of Republica, you're getting tired. So this will be an epic fail. Huh? Are you looking for an epic fail this way? Okay, this will be an epic fail. We will fail forward. That's the motto of our show tonight. We're here, and yeah, I love the culture of failure. I think we're more in a culture of success in Germany, where everybody has to be successful. I saw so many panels where people are showcasing their successes and what they do and how brave they are. And I said, okay, let's have a fail sessions with all of us as losers. And I thought about it. Are we losers if we fail? Everyone has to fail, no matter of talent, no matter of hard work, no matter of intelligence. So we all have to fail sometime. So we're not losers on the panel. We're just people with different backgrounds. And my panel is with Friederike Behrends, with Arthur Tolsma, with Niels Hooft, and with Jörn Kamphuis. And we all have different backgrounds, similar backgrounds. And yeah, I just wanted to talk with you about your failures, your past, what you learned, how we can find a culture of failure. And maybe I want to start with Friederike. Friederike is a TV and internet strategist for many years. She's a professional for many years. She worked for a platform you may all be familiar with Bild T-Online. And she worked for WDR, the digital media group Digital. And then now she's working for a TV platform called Magin, right? Magin, do you spell it Magin in German? Yep.
Totally right.
Which will be an aggregator for many TV channels as a platform where you can watch it online, not via cable or satellite. And you just launched a product and you said, okay, why do you invite me to a fail session? We just launched the product. Do we talk about the fail of the product? And I said, no, we don't want to talk about the fail of the product.
So, I know this can't be.
No, how hard is the pressure right now?
Very hard, to be honest, because we're so successful right now. So it's a little bit very many pressure, but I love this. So it's great to have so much success right now. So yeah. Yeah.
So, but if you see the product comes from Sweden, and you have your own background, your own history, and now you're working for the Swedish company. Do you think that these startups from there have kinds of failures built in the product development process?
I think the people there have another mindset, because there are so many. We are 100 people in Sweden coming from all over the world, and they have there are very many entrepreneurship in this company, because many of those very young people, they have built up 1, 3, 5 companies, and they have failed a lot, but they have another mindset of failure, because what is this? I don't know. It's the business success. It's a successful product. So but it's another kind of mindset, I would say. So I think it's more entrepreneurship in this company, like in a normal German company.
Yeah. You were sitting in positions as a general manager, as in the management of these companies. Were you ever asked in your CV about your failures? Yeah,
many times. But to be honest, I don't like the word failure. But when it's the beginning of an evolution, and I think you learn something when you fail. You learn nothing when you have a very successful life with no failures in your private or professional life. So yeah, it's every time it's a beginning.
Yeah, people who don't fail are kind of boring. I think if you play always safe, then there's nothing to risk. Yeah, and next to Friederike, there's Arthur, and you failed a lot. You told me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
You failed hard, and you wrote a book about that. You wrote a book called Startups and Downs.
Yeah.
And the story of the book is the story of life, right?
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So you had two companies, two startups in the Netherlands. One was a smaller one, then the other one was more focused, was more popular, and there was also a TV show where you won a prize or you won the challenge as one of the most important companies or most interesting startups in the Netherlands. And after 4 months, you had to close the company, right?
Yeah, I had to close down the office and fire some people and fire myself to continue. We continued part-time. But it was most hardest because you were first seen in the media as a successful entrepreneur. I was recognized on the street as people say, wow, it's a cool idea. But then, yeah, only 4 months later, you have to admit that you were not capable of doing it. And that's pretty harsh. So failure could be really, really, really harsh. But then again, that's the start and you have to pick up yourself and continue. And luckily we could continue and sell the company 2 years after. But even the selling was not a big success.
So you talked about feelings. How does this felt? All your colleagues, all your friends, the people you worked with, they saw you as the rising star of the entrepreneurs in Netherlands, and then you just hit the ground.
Yeah, that's the most difficult because your ego. I mean, ego is an important thing, and that's just it's been built up and up, and then when you fall. That's the harder, and it's very difficult to talk about it then because your ego is so hurt. It's difficult to be vulnerable, and that's why it took me. I mean, that was in 2010 when we failed and afterwards continued and sold the company in 2012. But only 3 months ago I could launch the book because then I was ready to write the book, to really face the feelings and to really be open to everyone about what I did wrong, because it's very difficult to show what you did and to show those feelings that are different.
And writing that book helped you?
Yeah, it did. Well, it was hard because you relive all those moments. But when I got the feedback from the audience, when I give a lecture or from the readers who now approach me and they say, wow, it's a really cool book and good that you are so vulnerable and I learned so much from it, that really helps me being very open about everything, and especially the mistakes I made, because I made them already, so other people can learn from this one.
Yeah. So you're also a writer, so you're a professional writer, Niels.
It's me.
Okay, yeah, it's you. You call yourself a hybrid writer.
Yeah.
You write books and you produce the iPad apps or the tablet apps for that books. And you worked for the video game industry. You wrote about video games. And now you're writing storylines for games. So where did you fail?
I feel so often. I fail every day trying to get up in the morning, getting up a little bit later than I planned to. But that's okay. It's part of life. That's right. But yeah, about 15 years ago, I started my first company, and I had a dream to build a platform for games journalism. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a great website with games journalism in the Netherlands, and I thought that was what I wanted to do. And I took about, well, at least 10 years to sort of try to make that dream a reality, and failed quite hard a couple of times in various ways. And what was hardest for me was to realize that maybe I should stop trying and try something else. Mm. Sometimes you have your sight set on something and you want it so badly that it becomes kind of myth, personal myth, like this is what I need to do. This is my job to do this. And ever since I decided that no, that was not what I wanted to do. Basically, if you're a games journalist, you're writing about other people's cool creations, right? So you're trying really hard to create this platform where you can write how cool other people's stuff is. And at that point I thought, I shouldn't be trying to do that. If I work so hard to realize a goal, I should be working to create my own cool things. And maybe other people can struggle to write about my things, right? So that was sort of the realization. That's when I tried to become what I call a hybrid author. And that's where I am now.
So you wanted to have your own experience while people are reading your books, reading your work. So you want to give them an experience.
Yeah. And of course, I'm only telling the gist of the story because I published my first novel in 2003. So I have been writing a lot as well. And in this sort of hybrid authorship, I found a kind of combination of things that seemed quite right for me, where I'm creating stories, but also creating sort of the tools around it and mingling in everything that has to do with writing a book, publishing it, and for example, thinking about how books can be visualized on these modern devices that not a lot of writers seem to be doing things with yet.
Yeah.
Maybe because they're afraid to fail, and especially fail publicly, because that's where a lot of the shame comes from, right? And a lot of the bad feelings. If you fail in your bedroom in the morning, that's quite okay. Maybe I shouldn't have told you because that probably made it worse, right? Paints a certain picture of me. But if I fail very publicly with a big company or with a book, that is a big flop. Yeah. That's when it becomes bad.
I heard some very important keywords: shame, hard feelings, failure. I didn't hear the word. I didn't hear mistake. We didn't talk about mistakes, but we talked about failing. Yeah? And next to me, there's Jörn. You failed also. You tried to build 2 companies. You tried to build an e-commerce platform, like an online shop, for low-carb products. And you tried to build a dating website, right? Yeah. For people you meet on the train and you see them never again. And so the platform was called Neulich?
Yeah,
right?
Neulich, like recently. Yeah,
recently. And then you failed with these platforms. Then you worked as a lecturer for for innovation process in Potsdam at the university. And at the moment, you're quite successful. You're a handsome guy. You work as a model, and you're Mr. Germany right now. Still, was last year?
Not raining, but I was back in
2013.
2013.
So when is the next election?
Pardon?
When was the next election? 2014.
It was the last for 2014 was in December. So I had to give away my whatever it was. Yeah.
So, but you didn't fail there.
No, I didn't. Yeah. Okay. Well, it depends how you define failing, because some people say, okay, if you need to go on a stage and be topless and show your six-pack, that's kind of failure for some people.
Isn't it?
Probably. I don't know. So, but at least I won this competition and I could make something out of it. So for me, it was kind of successful, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, when you hear the word ego, when you hear the word shame, and you just talked about staying topless on a stage, working as a model and not as an entrepreneur, how do you feel about your fails with the companies? What do you think about your ego in this time? How did it feel? How did you feel when you failed with your companies?
Yeah, there's definitely a difference between the time when I failed and now. Okay. Because now in that time, I recognized, okay, I'm not successful with the e-commerce platform, and I'm not successful with the online dating platform. I felt ashamed, kind of. Like, okay, everyone said, okay, you won't make it. Your dreams are too big. What do you think? How can you do a business like that? You know, all my friends back from school, my parents, blah, blah. You know that stories. And I was like, shit, did I really fail? Like, did I really fucking fail? And then I saw, okay, what did I really actually realize? And I saw, okay, I built 2 companies. I sold some products. I had some people on my platform. We actually built, we had like a team with 4 people. We had some people giving us money. So it was actually kind of success till one point. Mm-hmm. And then you just can't get further. And altogether, for me, I recognize is that you can just fail when you're willing to convict yourself afterwards for what you did by your best beliefs and knowledge. So you are willing to. And this is actually, for me, very nice to know, because I just can fail when I want to fail. So making mistakes is just a mistake when you think it's a mistake. So when other people say it's a mistake, okay. If they think it's a mistake, fair enough. But I think it's okay because it's part of the process.
Friederike, do you think that we're, in Germany especially, we are very fast in blaming people for failing and being envy about success?
I don't think we blame, but I think we in Germany we are very trained to be perfect. For example, I think also in the online business, because we test everything before and so on. And other companies are, oh, let's go outside, and then let the customer test all the things. Mainly the German companies have another, do it in another way. And I think there's no right or wrong, but we are trained in Germany, and also I think, me too, to be a little kind of be perfect and not say, for example, it's very hard to say, I don't know, in Germany. But in Sweden, people say, sorry, I don't know the answer, let's try. But nobody in Germany, or perhaps in my former companies, would say this. It's another thing to test things also. It's not only fail, it's only test things, or to that people, or that you have the expectation perhaps customers could say something negative, but it's okay. Yeah. It's a communication thing afterwards.
Yeah. So you wrote a book about failing, Arthur, and now you're sitting on a panel about failing.
Yeah.
And I recently wrote an article about failing in the Wired magazine, and they said failing is so uncool in the meanwhile. So it's no medal of honor, people. Get done with it. So do you think it's that we are now searching for failure as a kind of, yes, then we are the right startup, then we are the right entrepreneurs, we can showcase our failures? Or are we far away from that?
I think we're getting there. I mean, if you look at the US, of course, there's a big difference. If you failed there once, it's good on your entrepreneurial resume that you've been bankrupt even. In Holland, if you've been bankrupt, that's even worse. I mean, I managed to sell my company. I'm happy for that. I didn't have to close it down, to shut it down. But if you have a bankruptcy, that's difficult. But I see it changing in the Netherlands slowly. The Dutch people are known to be pretty adventurous, but not really open if they failed. I mean, they would either blame people or just ignore it and then start something new. But it gets more open and open. There are more people that are also there are more, how you could say that. Respected people and more corporate environments also where failing gets slowly, people talk about it, and it's something that's happening, and I think is a very good way, because in what we said, if you encourage, or if you embrace failure is a part of a search process, then and you're able to talk about it. It's not a stigma anymore, not a dogma. Then you're far better off.
Yeah, I could imagine a meeting in a big company. Well, like maybe you are owning a new company, and then you have a meeting every week where you ask all the people who you work with about their mistakes, and they should tell you all the mistakes they made this week. So not a success meeting like, okay, which goal did we reach? But completely the other way around. Could you imagine a meeting like that in your company?
To be honest, yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you would encourage your people to make mistakes and speak about the mistakes all they do?
I think it's kind of mindset also in the company. When you some people are afraid to tell mistakes, and this is, I think, this also happens in Sweden. It's yeah.
How open do we have to be for this? So I think it's the ego to say, okay, I did a mistake. In a company, in a team structure, it's always hard. Yeah? There's challenge between people. Is it?
But that's why you need the right culture. Indeed, you need a culture where people are open and when it's respected. I mean, it's sometimes difficult, especially with network meetings. If you're at the business meetings and people are, if you ask someone, if you meet someone new and you ask, how are you doing? Very good. I'm busy at this, and everyone's telling how good they are. The same on Facebook. I'm going to travel to New York, and I'm busy working at this new company, a new idea, a new career. All positive. But we should be more open to also the negative sides. And if you create a culture that's more open than that, I think that's the biggest challenge for people to be open about their failures. Indeed, so a meeting where you could say, okay, first let's talk about successes, and then let's talk about our failures, and what have we learned from that, and then you say, okay, combining the successes and failures, what are we going to do?
I think it's always hard to find the perfect moment to assume that you failed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, I agree totally with you.
How do we find that moment? So there's always hope. So we see a project, we see our little baby. The baby is the project, and then we say, it's not working. It's not working. I don't know why. But do do we have to quit this right now? Do we have to ditch the project? Or do we continue the project? So how do you do this?
There's this concept called the dip by Seth Godin, which is based on a sort of a graph, where the horizontal graph is the axis is how much effort you put in, and the vertical graph is how successful you are, how many results you get. And it always starts with a bump, right? You start a new project, you put effort into it, and cool stuff comes out of it, and then you go into this sort of dip where it gets tough. You know, you have sort of a basic product, you add things to it, and it takes a certain amount of effort and time to reach the amount of success that you want. And basically the idea is that if you stay in this dip too long, you know that you have to stop because you failed. But of course the question is, how long should you stay there? And that probably has to do with money. Like how much money does it cost to keep doing it? And one of the things that I try to do as a writer now, knowing all this about how things work, is I try to sort of keep the cost of staying in the dip of something that I really, really want, like the thing that I want the most. I try to keep the cost low so that I can stay in the dip as long as I have to. And of course, the realization for my previous project was that staying in the dip, which feels depressing, right? Yeah. It's not a fun place to be, because you can sort of see the mountains up ahead, and you know where you want to go, but it's just somehow you're not getting there. And if these are, the thing is that if these are not the mountains that you really want to go to, then you have to sort of.
But isn't it sometimes worse to go the long run? To say, okay, how long can we take this? So there's a sentence like, the pioneers get the arrows, the settlers the gold. So sometimes as a pioneer, you're much too early. The time is not right. And then you had the final product, but the time was not right. So maybe your dating platform was not right. Now we have Tinder. It grew out in a few weeks. It's just a dating program. Maybe you were just it was just too early for your platform.
Well, actually, when we reached the market, the online dating market with our product, the online dating market was actually full with products, and we did not realize it because we were like, yeah, we want to have our product in that market, even if it's like highly competitive. And of course, it's a point of time, but in the end, I think it's more about the business model. It's more about the team who can see if the time is right. And if the time is not right, the team can change the business model to something what fits in the time. So probably just seeing the time and rethink your product.
Yeah. So sometimes if we change the wording from failure to negative conversion, to negative experiences, then we can develop products very easily, I think. So sometimes we see like websites, so in different versions, split testing, different designs, and we have so many data in the meanwhile. We have all the measurement, we have the research, we have market research, and I think going back to Imagine, your product is like, I think you can track this, so correct me if I'm wrong, but if I watch television on Imagine TV, you can track when I just stop watching television. You can track my watching time, right? And so if you know how much connected I am to other people or what I watch also, you could people help to improve television, right? So based on my negative experience.
Yeah.
Isn't that?
Yeah.
Right? And right. Is that a cool way to develop products? To say, let's build negative experience into the research of the product, into the measurement process.
But I think this happens today, because when you as I say, when you put a product out in the market and it's not really perfect, and then you get negative, it's normal, then you get some negative customer reactions, but then you put it in your product development process and this product becomes better and better. And I think every company works with this right now. But in former times, it hasn't happened like this, and so it's and this is really very important that you can implement these negative customer reactions also in your product development process.
Yeah, but I still see so many companies who just make it easy, build websites where they say, okay, let's have a web design, a cool web design, and then the CEO decides, okay, the blue one is nicer than the red one. So there's no A/B tracking, no split testing. It's just about the feeling of the CEO, and then it will be done like this. And after 3 weeks, they do a relaunch. So I always heard the word relaunch of a product relaunch. There's no process in it in so many ways. So is that maybe the wrong culture, the wrong product development culture, to launch a product and not to soft launch a product?
I don't know how much the lean startup thinking is already here well known in Germany. Yeah, and what I like about that is that it makes a difference in finding product market fit and then growing. And in the beginning, you have to fail a lot and to learn a lot and to test a lot, and not launch big already. First, you have to learn what is the real added value of your product. How do your customers experience it before you launch? And that's what we did wrong, for instance, or what our mistake was, that we launched, we had a lot of media attention, we felt really good, and but we were not ready yet.
We failed really good.
We failed really good. yeah. Felt and failed, yeah. It's so close. But that's what's really important. First, you have to make sure that everything's perfect, and then launch big. And I think that's a mistake. And you launch something, and then you're afraid to change because you just said in the media or to all your customers, "Hey, this is it going to be. This is our big dream." And then after a month, you have to say, "Oh, we have to adjust it a little bit." So you need to make sure that in your development process, first you have the finding the product market fit with a lot of testing, with a lot of failures, with a lot of adjusting your situation, your colors or your payments or whatever, your prices. And then when you found the right product market fit, then go big and launch. And that's something, a mistake I see made by entrepreneurs quite a lot, or online entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Is there a way to write down good mistakes and bad mistakes in a table on the left and the side and the right hand side to say, okay, that are the mistakes, they were really bad, and I don't want to do them again. And these mistakes were cool, and I really want to do them again because the time changed. Is there any experience you had?
I would say that it depends a lot on the kind of product that you're launching. I mean, with the website that you can still change, basically everything is a good failure, right? Because you can still fix them. But when you put out a book and you print 10,000 of them, and it turns out there's a typo on page 2, you can't go back to fix them all, right? So that's a bad mistake.
Okay.
So in a sense, the internet enables a lot of failure, right? Because it makes us so flexible to change things as we go. I was just reading Creativity Incorporated by Ed Catmull, the president of Pixar. Mm-hmm. He put out a book about creativity and about how Pixar does things. And what seems sort of liberating in a sense to me is that there are hundreds of people working on a Pixar movie, but they have a lot of time to get things right. They can fail a lot during the production, so that they don't fail when the movie comes out. In a sense, it's a sort of a culture, but also a business model and a kind of product in which you can fail until you get it right.
So the concept is not the final product. So the concept is more like a design, more like a draft, and then the final product is built with all the mistakes.
There's many ways you can test a movie before it comes out, and I think the same goes for books, for novels. But it's very uncommon in the book publishing industry. Of course, as an author, you have your manuscript read by your editor, and maybe some friends. But it's a very small group with a very sort of specific outlook. And I think with the internet and with things like apps, I mean, if you're going to read the book on the app anyway, why not do something with some kind of feedback mechanism? If you think a chapter is boring, why not put in an option to send feedback to the author? Like, make it more exciting, dude. I mean, that's possible, right? But nobody's doing it.
When you talk at the university in Potsdam about innovation and innovation process, what are your takeouts for the audience?
Well, first, the main takeout is actually that I saw that the things we learned in uni about economics is not what you have to do in a startup. Mm-hmm. Of course, it helps that you get like an overview about economics, how things work in the world. But For example, when I was in uni, they told me, yeah, see VW, they make a proper Facebook site and they got like really cool Facebook followers and stuff. So what my students said, yeah, when I'm launching my business, I just do a Facebook site and it will go viral. Of course not, because how? I mean, just putting a Facebook site online and your product goes viral. And this was one thing I told them, like, okay, it's not about just having a proper marketing. It's about having a proper product people like and share by their own. It's not. I, for example, asked my friends, can you please like my Facebook page for this online shop I had? And I was writing about 800 people, and 100 gave a like, but I wrote them an individual message. So, yeah, so...
But it's not only about the message you wrote to your friends, it's also about the product, if they like the real product.
Yeah, exactly. This is why, yeah, but people, like, students think it's so easy to go viral.
Yeah.
And it's, what I recognize is, what Arthur already said, is entrepreneurs actually fall in love with the product and their vision. They do need to have a vision, for sure. But the most important thing is to go back to take the vision on a very, very, very small level to make a proof of concept. And if the entrepreneur or the CEO can't do it, you need someone who can. Because if someone falls in love with this vision, with this product, he's not able to change the direction.
So you think like we see as the entrepreneur sees the big picture, the big vision?
Yeah.
The big vision is 3 years ahead. Like, okay, that will be the final status.
Yeah, like changing the world and stuff like that.
Yeah, but we have just a little part of today.
Yeah, and the difficulty is as the same with when do you know you failed, is when do you have to be consistent and to be stubborn, and when do you have to change? Because they say that entrepreneurs have to be stubborn, because you've got the vision and you're more visionary than the other people, so the other people just don't know that this will be a great product. But you don't know, and maybe you're in the wrong thing. But it's good to have a vision in 3 years, but also to listen to the market. And that's the most difficult thing, when to listen to the market and to users and to use their feedback, and when to stay with your vision. That's one of the most difficult things.
Is that a part of the team? It's like building the team where you have the visionary and the guy who's more doing the market research?
Yeah, definitely. And also know in which direction, because on smaller things, like for instance, need the colors or the way it looks, the color of your website, or the small payment, it will be €5 or €10, your product, or relatively small. That still fits in the major vision of there's going to be a change in the online TV world, and we'll see this happening, this kind of change. But there are lots of ways to get there, and you have to find the right way to get there. And that's why I think you should implement and use failure, because try a lot of ways to get there in the end. You know what the end will be, more or less, the vision, and you should try different ways to get there. And that's only being done by trying and accepting failure and then try something again.
Yeah. Is there a list of mistakes there are on any road? These are that are on any road when you do something new? Like if you are now founding a new company, would you be sure that there will be 10 or 20 mistakes that will be on the road?
Yeah, I know the major one for all the also entrepreneurs I coach, or also in teaching. Too many people fall in love with their own product and spend too little time on market research, market conviction, and sales. Because most people think my product is so great, everyone will see it. Of course, I mean a good product sells itself, but that's not the case. Of course, you should have a good product, and then viral campaign is possible. But you should promote it, you should sell, you should go to customers, you should talk to a lot of customers. And I also thought, okay, I'll talk to a few people, but way too little. And you don't know how much time sales and marketing costs. It's just, a lot of people underestimate, because they have this vision which is concerned on a product level. They think that this industry is going to that direction, so I'm working at the industry. But no, you have to work on the commercialization of your vision, and that takes a lot of time. I think that's one of the major mistakes I made, and I see that now with a lot of entrepreneurs in my surroundings.
What are your favorite mistakes that you see when you start something new, Friederike?
Yeah, I think you have to be flexible, and you have to find the right people in the right track. I think it's to find and flexible people, because I think that you have to have a vision and you have to be convinced of our product, because I've worked in so many companies now, and when you have, for example, a business case, once we had a business case that's huge, but then we saw it was the wrong case, we assumed, and then we have changed the case, and it was a very successful company. But this was because we had the right people, and we could be very flexible, and people believes in our new case also. And yeah, this is a kind of luck sometimes also.
Mm-hmm. So you need also the users on your side.
Yeah.
Yeah. And are there mistakes that brings you forward, Niels?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I was just sort of reminiscing the days when I was working on my previous novel. And when I was just starting out, I had just put a new floor on my house. So there was this sort of wooden room there. And my second daughter was just born, so we couldn't decorate it yet. So it was just a wooden space. And I was sort of concepting my book, and I was thinking about ways to sort of see the story before I had spent, a year writing the whole thing. So I put up storyboards for my book, a chapter per square meter, so I could sort of walk around through the room and see the book. So before I had spent all this time figuring out or sitting down and writing and doing all the hard work, I already had this sort of idea of what I was going to make, and I saw that it wasn't going to work, right? It was a weird idea. There were a lot of gaps still to be filled. There were a lot of things I hadn't thought of. And of course, after I fixed it and after I started writing and did a quick first version, there were still a lot of mistakes. But the ones that the sort of structural things that I had taken out in this first version were not there anymore. So all kinds of mistakes that you can make while you're still in your sort of safe space, where you can at least look at it yourself. I mean, when you make something and look at it, this is what a designer does all day, right? You make something, you look at it and think, this is not what I had in mind. This is not what I expected it to feel like. Mm-hmm. So you try again. So that's on a very basic level, that's failure as well. Mm-hmm. And one thing I'm thinking about a lot as a writer is that, as I said before, you're very used to showing your book only to a very small group, because you feel vulnerable, right? You don't want them to hurt your feelings. You don't want them to say, you're such a bad writer, you better stop doing this, you better learn a real profession, right? But these people can teach you so much if you're sort of in it in the right way. If you write a story in a certain way and formulate sort of questions about it that help you sort of understand, for example, and this goes for any product, any piece of communication. A story is just a way of bringing what's in my head into your head. Mm-hmm. And I can succeed at this or I can't. First of all, I have to figure out what exactly it is I want to tell you. And then I've worked on it for a long time. And then when I show it to you, I can ask you, does it make you feel this way and that way? And did you think about this? Because this is a major theme. And if you tell me, no, not really, but maybe you can try this, that helps a lot. So I feel like I should open up a lot more and show my work a lot earlier and not be afraid of this sort of feeling naked on the stage. Yeah. Not be afraid of that.
Vulnerable, you said vulnerable. You did a quite long beta test for Imagine TV in Germany. I think it was like 4 or 3 months, where you invited people to register on the website, where they could use the product, and it looked completely different from the final version. I was one of the beta testers, and I found it quite interesting, because I was asked from friends, okay, why do they do this? Do they feel, what will happen if a journalist will see this and he will grill the product? So how will the company feel? So why do they show their product to the public while not being public? So what was the reason for this?
To test the service.
You test the service?
Yeah.
Like just testing?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
just testing.
how were the feelings when the first journalists and bloggers wrote about the product and they didn't find it like this and that?
I think it's normal. And we were quite surprised that it's mostly positive reactions, because as you see, as you have said, we had such a long beta phase, but I think our product is a very emotional product, and this is very, very good for us because everyone has a feeling about this, and we love this. We love the feelings our users, and when it's negative, then we learn, and so yeah.
Yeah, and I think we should more talk about emotions. So we talk about data, we talk about measurement, we talk about split tests, we talked about failing, but the emotions. So having a bad feeling and failing is very close together. You just talked about that.
Well, there's another point I'd like to make indeed on that, and that's about working hard. Working long hours, because in entrepreneurship, and in general, it's seen as the more you work, the more successful you'll be. If you want to be really successful as an entrepreneur, you have to work 70 hours a week, think of your company all the time, and that happens when you have your own company. When you're standing up, you're thinking. When you're on the shower, you're thinking, oh, what am I going to do today? And if you're going to bed, you're laying down and you say, well, how was this day? What I did right? What did I do wrong? But that's too much sometimes. You don't take holidays or too little. We said, well, holiday, that's for people who work at the ministry or something. And that was a basic mistake, a major mistake, because I think hard work is overrated. As in, you should be effective, you should be cool, and if you want to be creative, and then you need a lot of energy. You should be in good energy. I did then when I understood that I needed to do a lot of sales meetings or with investors. I had a lot of meetings in a week, but you can better have 2 meetings in a week that go really well. And in the morning you can sleep out a little bit and read the newspaper, and prepare a little bit and have a really good meeting, and then you'll succeed. Instead of having 10 meetings in 1 week where you're rushing from one to the other, not really prepared. So it's all about doing the things that you do them really well. And otherwise, it's very difficult. And then if you are in a difficult phase, I really feel it now with people, especially entrepreneurs, when they are in a difficult phase, you can feel that they are a little stressed and a little nervous and they want too much too soon. They want a deal, they want cash. And that's something they display, that emotion of I need something, I need it. And that's when people don't like to work with them. So then it becomes even more difficult to get a deal done. If you're really relaxed and you're just very satisfied and full of confidence that you will succeed, and then people like to work with you. People like to work with successful.
Really? It sounds a little bit like a first world problem to me. Like, so calm down, relax, fail a little bit, and then you get the money.
I wish it would have been that easy indeed. But I noticed that when I'm back at a high energy level, and then people come to you as in, hey Arthur, hey, you're good at that, right? You probably could do that as well. Can you do this for us? And that just happens because you're in good energy again, and people feel that, and also dealing with failure. And we talked about is failure good, or what can you learn from your mistakes? I mean, I learned a lot from my mistakes, and that's why I'm doing really good right now, because also people value that, and they've seen in my book, and they know that I'm open about it. And combined with the good energy I have now, I think that's a good recipe for success.
Yeah. So I would like to talk about teamwork. So I think it's a big difference failing alone and failing with a team, or failing as a team. And in many companies we are structured in teams where our team challenges, we have team meetings, we have teams challenging with other teams. And where's the difference between failing as a person and failing as a team?
I think the most problematic thing is when you have to fire people because of failure of the company, because this is really personal thing, and I think this is really hard.
So when you have to fire people who failed, the one who has to fire, or the one who gets fired?
Then when the company, or perhaps you cannot say it in general, because when a company, perhaps when your company failed, it's not the team failed, but the idea. The business, perhaps. Perhaps it's the wrong time. Perhaps the investors are not the right investors. So many reasons. But when you take it personally, and when it's your vision, then for me it's really hard. It's really it's hard when it's your vision and you have to fire people because it's no money there.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's really difficult indeed.
Yeah.
And then the challenge is to do that well.
Yeah.
So to be very open as well. That's the only thing you can do, to be very open. And then in my case, my team was really what the people worked at. I did not that much people, just one full-time employee and a few interns and freelancers. They understood it. They accepted it, and they felt bad for us that we had to close down the office and really go back to that part-time entrepreneurship and take 3 steps back. They felt bad for us. I mean, they also felt bad for themselves because what happened. But I also, and that's really important. If you're working at a team, you should communicate a lot about how it's going, and just be open and honest on that.
Niels, writing down a concept, writing down a structure for launching a product, for launching a new book. Does it mean like writing the concept for the final product, or do you find slots in the concept where you have fail options? Like, okay, let's fail here, let's fail here, let's fail here, let's do a mistake there, and then get the clue out of it, get the learning, and then continue from there.
I think when you're really making, am I still on? Yeah. When you're really making something new, it's like you don't really know what shape it's going to take, right? So you start with an idea, maybe an approximation of or a direction where you want to go, and then you sort of try to go that way, and then as things are not working, these point you in a certain slightly different direction, and if things are working, these point you into a certain direction. So you're like, I mean, there's many metaphors to be made out of that. It's like you're digging something up, or you're finding your way in the dark, kind of thing. And I think failure is just an integral part of the creative process in that sense. So what was your question again?
No, it was a question. No, it was like, do you have a structure where you say, okay, like, I'm not going from A to Z.
Yeah.
I'm more like going from A to E, and then I will see.
I think, generally speaking, there's this sort of physics of failure where the harder or the newer something is that you want to make, the more likely it is that you will fail. When you're doing something really hard and something really new, it's just you can't make a checklist like that. You just have to dive in and be prepared to fall flat on your face and get up again and try different ways of approaching this sort of vague but quite exciting vision that you see in front of you.
If you see the vision and you fail with the vision and you know all the mistakes you made, isn't it worse to dream the dream again and do everything again without the mistakes?
Well, you could, but the thing is, like for me, for example, we had 2 years trying to develop it, to reach the market, to reach the customers. But how can you do it for 2 years again? I mean, the motivation just like it's gone. For me, it was gone. So there was no way doing it again. I mean, of course, I know my mistakes, and I definitely use them now for my new companies or ideas, whatever. But I couldn't because of the motivation, for sure. Like,
but motivation is a big point. So there was recently a event called Fail Conference, where people just came together, talked about their failures, and get the motivation out of it. And in Germany, I think the conference failed because less participants, which is quite funny. But how do we find a structure where we get back the motivation and where we share our mistakes and the learnings?
And I think that is about embracing failure. I mean, it took me some time. I mean, I have to be honest. In the beginning, it was very difficult for me to talk about my failures and the mistakes I made. But then when you see that making a mistake is not by definition a bad thing, it's a bad thing at that moment, but then you learn from it and you come out stronger, then you see, okay, well, it's actually good maybe that I've made those mistakes because I've learned from it, I've grown from it. And I think that's the basic thing, and that's why it's very good to have those fail conference, and to have this session as well. So it's very good that you're organizing this, because then you see that failure is a good thing. There's a saying, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. I don't know if it's used in Germany as well. I'm not really fond. It's not a rule. I think it's more. I like to change it a little bit to, if it doesn't kill you, learn from it and try to make it stronger. So if something doesn't kill you, take it and try to make it stronger. And it could be lots of different things. But I notice, and I think that's the most inspiring people in my surroundings. I value a lot of people who've been through hard times and then became a better person out of it.
Yeah.
I think about that actually the culture is already there until we are 5 and we need to go to school. Because everyone, like you said it someday, I think every one of us is actually learning to walk. Yeah. And what's happening, everyone just falls down. And no one says, oh, you're stupid, you failed. No one does it. So you have we just need to expand the time from 5 to 90 where you can just fail and it's not a problem because it's part of the process.
Yeah, to talk about that. So if you want to create a culture of failure and extend that...
It's actually not about creating, it's just extending. The culture is already there, I think. It's just to change the point of view.
Okay, and how do we do that? In school?
Yeah,
starting from school?
Well, what I do is talking about failure. So this is the only thing I can do. I can't but I can probably build a school or something where you're not getting notes for what you did, just for what you want to do or what your goal is, and then you just see if you reach the goal, how much you had to actually, how far you away from the goal, and then you can give probably a note. But I think it's about that. So first of all, telling the people or showing the people, hey, I failed, and it's not a problem, I'm still alive. So nothing happens, nothing bad. Like the kids don't die if they, probably they are, but most of the times they don't.
Yeah.
I agree that is, if you have the examples, and that's why it's really good to be here as well. If you see examples of people who tell openly about their failures and mistakes, then you start doing often. I now get a lot of people who come up to me and tell about their mistakes or about their failures, or if they had a burnout or something, because they know I also shared that story.
Yeah, but how cool is that? So you can share all your mistakes, and then you have the perfect master plan, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I learn from everyone, so that's really good. No, and I think that's, that's why it's good to see the examples that are there, and then you know, okay, so it's okay. I can share my mistakes, and I will not be punished for it. And I think that's also, I see that happening in the Netherlands, step by step, and hopefully this is also a good step towards that, that it's more shared, and mainly because if we focus on what we learn from that, then it's a very positive. The end result is positive. I mean, the failure itself is, and the mistakes is a bad thing because it hurts and your ego hurts and it financially hurts as well. But then if you learn from it, then you look at it from a positive perspective.
I'm just wondering what would be happen if I work in your company, for instance, or in one of your companies, and you're sending the Friday newsletter from the board. That's where I failed this week. So the CEO writing a newsletter to all the team members and said, okay, that's my 5 points where we failed this week. And then the second part is the motivation part. Could any one of you imagine such a mailing from the CEO?
I'll do it in my next company. Thank you for the tip.
You do it for the next company?
I will do it.
You will do it, okay.
I have a blog where I keep week notes. Like every week I write down what I did work-wise. And it's like as we talked about before on Facebook, it's all good news. And it gets sort of, it feels fake after a while. So what I'm trying to do now and more often is to also include the bad news. Mm-hmm. Because I think that if you also include the bad news, people will take it more seriously when you have good news. Mm-hmm. Right? It's a very sort of simple law. And definitely if you're a CEO of a big company, definitely do that, because you want to tell your employees that it's okay for them to fail as well. Mm-hmm. And especially if they fail, that they actually talk about it and sort of try to improve upon it. I think something that goes wrong in a lot of big companies is that even if people are failing, nobody's talking about it. So it keeps happening, right?
That's an important point. Trust. So you talk about salespeople that don't have to underestimate the sale for your product, and then you talk about trust. So what do you do if you have not the final product? So you have 10% of the product and it's not working and it's buggy as hell, and then you go to the salesman and say, okay, please sell the product for $100. How does it work?
Yeah, it depends on your goal. What do you want? Do you want to sell it, or do you want the market feedback from the users? And if you only have 10%, that should be the major the key point of your idea, and you can show something, and that people see, okay, they can give feedback on is there potential or is there not. And if you don't get the fact, or if you don't get people buying it, but you got people like, okay, I don't want to buy it now, but if you build this and this feature, then I will pay $100. That's also very valuable. Because then you know, okay, if I build this feature and that feature, they will buy it. And of course, you need to get that on paper. So a letter of intent, as in, if you build this. But that's a good way of also prototyping, that you have something, you show it to potential customers, and then you get the real feedback. Because if you ask I think also in Lean Startup Theory, it's the mom test. I don't know if you know it. If you have a new idea and you ask it on your mom, hey mom, is this a good idea? They say, yes, of course, I like it, yes. And that's not the person you should ask it to. Yeah. You should go to potential customers and ask, is it a good idea? And please be honest. And if they say no, that's valuable information, because that prevents you from investing a lot of time and money in the production or the further production. And maybe if they say, but this is not a good product, but if you build this, if you change it, then that's something, we will pay for it. Very valuable.
I would like to give more motivation to the audience, and so maybe we could close that talk with a statement with all of you. What was your biggest learning, your most important learning within the last 5 years? Maybe you want to just start?
Yeah, I think I'll wish, it might sound harsh, but I wish you a lot of success and failure. Because I think from success and failure, you learn the most and you grow as a person. Also because, if you don't want failure, you can be a 6. You can have a 6 out of 10 for your life, the whole your life. But if you want to reach a 9 or an 8 sometimes, you have to accept that there will also be downs. So yeah, if you want to reach for success, accept failure.
Friederike, your biggest learning?
I think the biggest learning is that I'm the best in things doing when I have a emotional feeling with a product, and not to make work like normal work. It's my personal thinking. So and then all the people feels and it's no problem to fail, because it's not so problematic. But you have to you better work in this surrounding with the right people and the right feeling. And you should look for this, more than before, perhaps, in my personal thinking.
Niels, your learning?
I think one of the biggest things that I did wrong earlier is that I sort of set the bar too low. So I was sort of aiming for a sort of soft success, so that if I would fail, I wouldn't feel so hard. Like these physics of failing again. If you don't aim high, you can't fall hard. But then it took a long time, and I didn't go bankrupt, and it just kept going. And I took years to discover I was actually not having a soft success, but I was having a soft failure. Mm-hmm. So what I try to do more now is sort of fail faster, fail harder. I mean, fail as fast and as hard as you can. Okay. Something like that. Okay. Because then you can still steer away and do something else. Because your life's only so short, you know.
Okay.
My biggest learning, and I said it before, is that you just can fail when you are willing to convict yourself for something you did from best knowledge and beliefs.
Okay. So my key outs for this talk are: it's less risky to fail because of all the data we have, of all the measurement, of all the statistics, the research. So we should fail harder and faster. we should take everything with more emotions, more personal. So it should be bound to to the people. We should fail in groups and not alone. And we shouldn't be afraid of shame. Right?
Right.
Yeah, you would agree?
I would agree.
Sure.
Okay. So, thanks for being here at the KreativLounge at the Republica 2014. Let's fail again. Let's fail. And I'm really willed to see the blog posts, the emails, your videos about your fails and failures of the next month. Thanks for failing.
Not for Imagine.
Okay, not the product. Yeah, I wish you all the best for all your products and all your ideas. So I wish you success and failures. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.